The world has never been a place of stillness. Everything around us keeps shifting. Economies rise and fall, governments change direction, technologies reshape how we live, and even the way people think is constantly evolving. Nothing stays the same for too long. One moment, life feels stable and predictable. The next, everything seems uncertain again. This is the reality of the world we live in today. For many people, these constant changes feel overwhelming. Prices of basic necessities go up without warning, jobs become uncertain, and future plans suddenly feel less secure than they once did. In some places, social and political conditions add even more pressure, making everyday life a struggle for stability. People wake up each day not knowing what new challenge might appear, and yet they still move forward, because stopping is not an option. But even in this environment of uncertainty, one thing continues to matter more than anything else: hope. Hope is not just a feeling. It is what keeps people going when logic says they should give up. It is what pushes someone to try again after failure, to rebuild after loss, and to believe that tomorrow can still be better than today. Without hope, even the strongest systems and the most determined individuals begin to break down. Across the world, we see examples of this quiet strength every day. A worker continues to show up despite rising costs. A student studies under difficult conditions, believing education will change their future. A family shares what little they have, trusting that better days will come. These are not grand stories that make headlines, but they are the real foundation of every society. They prove that even when the world changes in unpredictable ways, human resilience remains constant. Change itself is not the enemy. In fact, change is what drives progress. New ideas emerge, new opportunities are created, and old problems sometimes find solutions because of change. But the difficulty lies in how fast and unpredictable it can be. When change comes too quickly, people struggle to adjust, and that is when fear begins to grow. Fear of the unknown can easily overpower confidence, unless it is balanced by hope. Hope does not deny reality. It does not pretend that problems do not exist. Instead, it acknowledges the challenges and still chooses to believe in improvement. It is the quiet voice that says, "Things are hard right now, but they will not always be this way." That simple belief is powerful enough to keep individuals and entire communities moving forward, even in the most difficult times. In today's world, where news changes every hour and uncertainty feels constant, protecting that sense of hope has become more important than ever. People may not control the direction of global events, but they can control how they respond to them. And as long as hope remains alive, there is always a reason to continue, rebuild, and try again. The world will keep changing, that is certain. But whether those changes lead to despair or progress depends on something much deeper within us: the decision to keep hope strong, no matter what happens next. As the world continues to evolve, the impact of change is felt most deeply in the daily lives of ordinary people. It is not always the large global events that shape human experience, but the small, repeated pressures that build up over time. Rising expenses, shifting job markets, and increasing uncertainty about the future all combine to create a constant sense of instability. For many, it feels as if the ground beneath them is never fully steady. In such times, people begin to adapt in ways they never expected. They adjust their lifestyles, reduce their needs, and find new ways to survive within limited means. What once felt normal slowly becomes a memory of the past. Families learn to prioritize essentials over comfort, and individuals become more cautious with every decision they make. This adaptation is not easy, but it shows how deeply human beings can adjust when they are forced to. However, adaptation alone is not enough to sustain emotional strength. When life becomes a cycle of stress and uncertainty, the mind begins to feel exhausted. This is where hope becomes more than just an abstract idea. it becomes a necessity. Hope acts like a mental anchor, preventing people from being completely overwhelmed by the weight of circumstances. It does not remove the difficulties, but it changes how those difficulties are experienced. Even in difficult conditions, there are moments that remind people why they continue. A small achievement, a kind word from a stranger, or a minor improvement in daily life can create a ripple of encouragement. These moments may seem insignificant on their own, but together they form the emotional foundation that keeps people moving forward. In a constantly changing world, such moments become deeply valuable. At the same time, it is important to recognize that uncertainty affects everyone differently. Some people face stronger challenges due to location, resources, or personal circumstances. Others may have more stability, but still feel the emotional pressure of global unpredictability. No one is completely untouched by change. This shared experience of uncertainty connects humanity in a quiet but powerful way. Despite differences, one common truth remains: people everywhere continue to hope. Whether spoken openly or held silently within, hope exists in every corner of society. It is present in the decisions people make for their children, in the effort they put into their work, and in the belief that tomorrow might bring something better. Even when the world feels unstable, this belief does not disappear easily. Hope also plays a role in how people interpret challenges. Two individuals can face the same situation but respond differently depending on their mindset. One may see only obstacles, while the other sees opportunity for change. This difference is often what determines whether a person feels defeated or motivated. Hope does not change the situation itself, but it changes the way the situation is understood. In a world that continues to shift without warning, maintaining this perspective is not simple. It requires emotional strength and patience. But it is this very strength that allows people not only to survive, but to continue building their lives despite uncertainty. And as long as this inner resilience exists, the effects of change can be faced without losing direction. The world will not slow down for anyone. It will keep changing, reshaping itself in ways that are sometimes difficult to predict or control. Yet even in this constant motion, hope remains one of the few things that people can hold on to, and that is what makes it so powerful. As time moves forward, change does not only affect external conditions, but also reshapes how people think and feel about their place in the world. What once felt certain slowly becomes uncertain, and what once seemed stable begins to shift without warning. This creates a quiet pressure in the minds of many, where the future feels less like a clear path and more like an unknown direction that must be navigated step by step. In such an environment, doubt often becomes a common companion. People begin to question their decisions, their opportunities, and sometimes even their ability to keep going. This is a natural response to instability. When external conditions change rapidly, the human mind tries to find patterns or predict outcomes, and when it cannot, uncertainty grows. Yet even in this space of doubt, people continue to move forward, often without realizing the strength it takes to do so. Hope plays a crucial role in this process. It does not eliminate doubt, but it prevents doubt from becoming permanent. It acts as a counterbalance, allowing individuals to pause, reflect, and then continue despite not having full clarity. Without hope, doubt can easily turn into paralysis. With hope, doubt becomes a temporary state rather than a final conclusion. Across communities, this balance between doubt and hope is visible in everyday actions. People continue to invest time in their education, careers, and relationships even when outcomes are uncertain. They continue to make plans, not because they are guaranteed success, but because they believe there is still a possibility of improvement. This willingness to act in uncertain conditions is one of the most defining characteristics of human resilience. At the same time, the world continues to present new challenges at a rapid pace. Technological advancement, economic fluctuations, and global events all contribute to a sense of unpredictability. While these changes can bring progress, they also demand constant adaptation. Those who are unable to adjust quickly may feel left behind, which can deepen feelings of insecurity. Yet even in these situations, people often find ways to learn, grow, and adapt over time. One of the most powerful aspects of hope is that it is not limited by external conditions. It does not depend on wealth, status, or environment. Instead, it exists internally, within individuals and communities, and can persist even when external circumstances are difficult. This is why hope often appears strongest in places where conditions are hardest. It becomes a form of inner resistance against despair. However, hope is not always loud or visible. In many cases, it exists quietly, expressed through persistence rather than words. A person continuing their work despite setbacks, a family supporting each other through difficult times, or an individual choosing to try again after failure. All of these are forms of hope in action. They may not always be recognized, but they are deeply significant. In a constantly changing world, this quiet persistence is what keeps society functioning. Without it, progress would stall, and adaptation would become impossible. Hope fuels the willingness to continue, even when results are not immediate or guaranteed. It creates space for patience in a world that often demands instant outcomes. As conditions continue to evolve, the importance of this inner strength becomes even more clear. The world may remain unpredictable, but the response to that unpredictability is shaped by something deeply human: the decision to keep believing that change does not only bring difficulty, but also the possibility of something better. There are moments in every era when the pace of change feels faster than people can comfortably process. One day brings new developments, and the next brings challenges that were not expected. In such times, it can feel as though stability is something distant, almost unreachable. People begin to adjust not only their actions but also their expectations, learning to live with uncertainty as a normal part of life. This constant adjustment affects more than just external routines. It also influences emotional well-being. When uncertainty becomes frequent, the mind can begin to feel fatigued. Decisions that once felt simple now require more thought, and long-term planning becomes more difficult. People start focusing more on surviving the present rather than preparing for the future, not because they lack ambition, but because the future feels less predictable. Yet even in this environment, human beings continue to find ways to create meaning. Life does not stop simply because conditions are difficult. People still build relationships, pursue goals, and find moments of joy in everyday experiences. These small but meaningful actions remind us that life is not defined only by challenges, but also by how we respond to them. Hope plays a silent but essential role in this process. It is not always visible, and it does not always feel strong, but it remains present even in the background of difficult circumstances. It allows people to continue functioning when clarity is missing, and gives them the emotional space to recover after setbacks. Without it, even small challenges can feel overwhelming. In many situations, hope is what transforms endurance into progress. Endurance alone means surviving, but hope gives survival a direction. It encourages people not only to continue, but to believe that continuation has purpose. This belief is what separates temporary struggle from permanent despair. Even when results are not immediate, hope keeps the idea of improvement alive. Across different parts of the world, this quiet force can be seen in countless ways. A person rebuilding after loss, a student continuing education despite obstacles, or a worker adapting to changing conditions. All of these reflect an underlying belief that effort still matters. Even when outcomes are uncertain, the act of trying remains valuable. At the same time, the world continues to present new layers of complexity. Economic shifts, social changes, and global uncertainties often interact with each other, creating situations that are difficult to fully understand or predict. This complexity can make people feel small in comparison to the larger systems around them. Yet it is within this complexity that human resilience becomes most visible. Resilience is not the absence of difficulty, but the ability to continue despite it. It is built slowly, through repeated experiences of adapting, failing, learning, and trying again. Hope is what supports this process, giving individuals the emotional strength to continue even when progress feels slow. Without hope, resilience weakens. With it, resilience grows stronger over time. In this way, hope and resilience work together, shaping how people respond to an ever-changing world. They do not prevent challenges, but they change how those challenges are faced. And as long as this internal strength remains, even the most uncertain conditions can be met with determination rather than defeat. In the end, every generation faces its own version of uncertainty. The details may change, different challenges, different systems, different pressures, but the feeling remains familiar. People everywhere have always had to live with moments where the future is unclear and the present feels heavy. What defines each generation is not the absence of difficulty, but how it chooses to respond to it. When change becomes constant, it forces people to reconsider what truly matters. Material stability, long-term plans, and expectations of certainty all begin to feel less guaranteed than before. In their place, people start valuing something deeper: the ability to adapt, the strength to continue, and the mindset to find meaning even when conditions are not ideal. These qualities become more important than predictability itself. Hope, in this context, is not just optimism. It is a form of inner discipline. It is the decision to keep believing that effort still has value, even when results are delayed or unclear. It is what allows people to wake up each day and continue trying, despite knowing that challenges will likely remain. Without this discipline of hope, even the smallest obstacles can feel like permanent barriers. As the world keeps changing, people often discover that control is limited. Many events happen outside individual influence: economic shifts, global developments, and unexpected disruptions. While this realization can feel discouraging, it also brings clarity. It teaches that while people may not control everything, they still control how they respond. And in that response lies the power to shape personal direction, even in uncertain times. This understanding slowly builds strength. It shifts focus from what is lost or unstable to what can still be built. People begin to prioritize resilience over perfection, progress over certainty, and persistence over fear. These shifts may seem small, but collectively they form the foundation of survival and growth in a constantly evolving world. Hope is what keeps this foundation intact. It is what stops people from giving up when situations become difficult. It does not promise immediate solutions, nor does it guarantee easy outcomes. Instead, it offers something more sustainable: the belief that change, even when difficult, is not the end of the story. There is always another moment ahead, another chance to adjust, rebuild, and move forward. Across time, societies that have endured the most hardship are often those where hope remained alive in the people. Even when systems struggled, even when conditions were harsh, the belief in a better future allowed progress to continue in some form. This pattern repeats throughout history, showing that hope is not just emotional. It is deeply connected to survival and development. Today's world is no different. It continues to shift in ways that are sometimes difficult to predict or control. Yet within that uncertainty, people continue to build, create, learn, and support one another. These actions may seem ordinary, but they represent something powerful: the refusal to stop believing in improvement. Ultimately, the world will always keep changing. That is its nature. But whether those changes lead to collapse or progress depends on something far more stable than external conditions. It depends on the quiet, persistent strength of hope, the belief that even in uncertainty, tomorrow still holds the possibility of something better.